Welcome! So around a month or so back, I decided that to supplement my Beatles collection, which is pretty extensive, obviously compared to some Beatles fans, it's pretty minuscule, but as far as I'm concerned and the way I collect music, it's quite considerable. I've got all the studio albums, many of the compilations and soundtracks, and the Beatles catalogue. I don't really need to go into it, and some of them are doubled and even tripled up thanks to box sets and expanded CDs and everything. But I've not really got much in the way of solo Beatles apart from a handful of 7-inch singles. Plus I did get George Harrison's first two albums, Wonderwall Music and Electronic Sound, on Zoetrope vinyl last year. So I decided, especially with me reading the McCartney Legacy books, which are excellent by the way, I'm about nearly halfway through the second volume at the moment, I decided that I wanted to collect Paul McCartney's solo work, and by solo obviously I'm including Wings in that, but I only want to collect it on half-speed mastered vinyl. Obviously not all of Paul's work has come out in that series, that half-speed mastered at Abbey Road series. Looks like we're getting one album a year, and initially I was gonna get the first album, McCartney, which I did. Here it is. I showed this in the last records roundup, so I'm not going to spend an awful long time on this, but I've listened to it of course by now, and it's a really pleasant album. I don't think it's his best work, not when comparing it to the Beatles, but it was the first time I'd heard it, and I thought, you know what, for kind of like almost a homemade demo, which for all intents and purposes I suppose it was really, this is a very good listen. I got that from Action Records by the way, but for more information see the previous records roundup that I did. So what I was going to do, I was going to aim to get Paul McCartney half-speed master in this particular series with the coloured Obi strip, etc. I was going to get one a month. Well, yeah, it's only been about a month, maybe a bit over, since I decided this was a collection I wanted to undertake, and I've got them all. So once again, being impatient has got the better of me really, but at least it means that I can do a special video here today to show you all of the Paul McCartney half-speed masters, and yes, all of them that have been released so far in this particular series I've got to show you today, and there's a mail opening at the end. I'll start with really the big ticket item, and by the way, these won't be in any order of release, they're more lumped together depending on where I bought them from, you'll see. I really wanted this right after McCartney, but it was way more expensive than the rest, so I thought initially I might have to wait and just maybe get this down the road a piece really. But no, I did manage to get it some weeks ago, not listened to it yet. It's second hand, this is the only pre-owned, pre-loved vinyl that I've got in this video. Of course I'm talking about Paul and Linda McCartney's Ram. In essence it's McCartney's second solo album. I put it in one of my gatefold protective sleeves here. Obviously it's got the yellow Obi strip here, and I've heard very good things about this album. Now, the majority of Paul McCartney's solo work I've not heard, at least in full. I've heard plenty of singles, and there's one or two Wings albums he did own back in the day. I think we'll get onto one in a little bit. But Ram is something that I've never owned, I've never listened to before. Open it out to show you the gatefold. So really pleased I got this. The price of it from Discogs was around, if I can remember, because it was some weeks ago when I bought it, I think about £70, which is way more than what I like to pay for an album really. But believe it or not, that was about the cheapest I could find it. As I think most of, although I don't think my McCartney album, the debut album from Action Records, had one of these, and that was pre-owned as well, so either it didn't come with one anyway or it's just missing it, but it doesn't matter. But this one, and presumably all the others, has come with one of these mastering certificates here from Miles Showell of Abbey Road Studios. Just tells you about the technique for pressing this record. I'm not saying that the half-speed master is gonna be absolutely better than any other sort of pressing before or since. It's just nice to get a collection that's kind of uniform, really, that where it all sort of fits together. There's similarities between each record. So that's the certificate. I won't bother reading out all the information. That's easy enough to kind of find out. The Obi strips are always sort of similar, although obviously in this series they're different colours. It's got the Abbey Road Studios logo on the back, and it tells you what date the half-speed master was cut. In this case it was the 9th of December 2020. 9th of December is my eldest daughter's birthday. And it was of course taken from the original 1971 master tapes at Abbey Road. Just before I move on, I'll give you a quick look at the vinyl. It is just one disc, as I think all these albums are. As this is opened already, it's easy just to show you. But this should have, yeah, it's got the Apple Center label. Looks in very nice condition. I'm assuming this wasn't played very often by its previous owner. Delighted to have got Ram. In a similar vein, as it was also from a Discogs seller, but rather more cheaper, and rather more recently I managed to pick up Rose Speedway. So obviously I'm jumping ahead in the timeline here, so you've got to be like, well, you're missing one. Well, don't worry, we'll get to it. As I say, I've been reading the McCartney Legacy books, and I know this album, it wasn't massively well received. It's one I've not listened to before. I'm looking on it now and seeing what on it I'm familiar with, and possibly My Love, I know, and that's about it really. So it's a bit of a learning experience for me, this McCartney collecting, because yes, I'm a big Beatles fan, but that's been literally a fan of the Beatles, as in McCartney, Lennon, Harrison, Starr all together. I have largely ignored a lot of the solo work. You know, I want to collect the George Harrison Zoe tropes, as all things must pass. By the time you're watching this, I'm hoping that I've picked that up around Record Store Day, but we'll find out in the next Records Roundup if I did or not. Yeah, I don't think this is anyone's favourite McCartney or Wings album. The price of this wasn't bad. I think with postage it was between 35 and 40, I think. So happy to have that. So we can go through these fairly quickly. I'm not going to get any more vinyl out or get any of them unsealed. If it was coloured vinyl I would, but it's all black. So we go back in the timeline now, but to a different seller. This one was from a website I've not used before called The Turntable Coffee and Vinyl, and they're based in Huddersfield. Now Huddersfield I know for Vinyl Tab, who are a brilliant record shop, and for a relatively small town I think it's fantastic that they've got at least two, maybe more, I don't know, but at least two very good record sellers who also have good websites, as I do recommend The Turntable. And I got to Wildlife, McCartney's third solo album, but technically the debut Wings album, of course. Once again, I don't think there's anything on here that I've heard before. I say that, and I will have heard McCartney cuts from albums and things on the radio over the years, but you know, something may trigger a memory when I'm listening to all this. But as to the best of my knowledge, as I speak now, this will be the first time that I've heard anything off Wildlife. It's got the green Obi strip, of course. Rose Speedway's was blue, as you saw. It has got this turntable price sticker on, which tells you how much I paid for it, £27, and then it was only about another £3 or £4 in postage, so just over £30 for this. Don't think this is gatefold sleeve either, but that replicates how it originally came out. The record label, I don't know if it was Apple or Capitol in the US, refused to issue this as a gatefold sleeve for some reason. It's got some notes on the back from someone, Clint someone it is, but I can't see the rest of his name underneath this Obi strip, and I'm not going to get it unsealed just to see that. You'll be able to look it up somewhere if you really want to know. So thank you to the Turntable for that. So I also tried another site that I'd never used before to get the latest Paul McCartney and Wings half-speed master, the one that's only just come out within the last, as I'm recording this, couple of weeks or so. And of course I'm referring to Venus and Mars. This one is from Last Night from Glasgow, which is a record store and a little boutique record label in Glasgow. And the reason I decided to get this from there, they had it up for quite a high price. It was around £43–44, but they were doing a 30% off for 30 hours sale. And I wasn't in any rush to get this, believe it or not. I mean, I did want it because I wanted to make this video eventually. But no, I've got it not too long after it came out. And it's a sort of, what would you say, purpley blue obi strip on this one. This will be gatefold certainly. I've seen a few videos where people are unboxing this, and I know it comes with stickers and things as well, but same kind of design for the obi strip. Where I'm up to in the McCartney legacy, they've just finished Venus and Mars, they released it, and then they're going on the big world tour. Compared to the album before this, which we'll get onto finally, it wasn't as well received, but I think, and my mind is playing tricks on me, but I think I did have a copy of this a few years ago, but I did part with it. I'm familiar with what's on here, I think, unless it's confusing. There was other Wings stuff that I had, and I'm trying to get it right in my head. I believe I did own a copy of this once upon a time, and I thought it was okay, but I'll certainly be listening to it again, and this will be a copy that's for keeps, as it's in the Half Speed Master collection. Great stuff from last night at Glasgow with 30% off. That was down from like 40 something to not much more than 30, which currently was about as cheap as you can get that. So on to a mail opening. This came today from iMusic in Denmark. I've used them a lot lately, as they're excellent really. For an international store, their prices are about as competitive as you can get. The postage is always reasonable. Postage for this from Denmark to the UK was only about £4.99, and it didn't take long either, only about 5 days. So no complaints at all really. And you know what's coming. Well, if you're a McCartney and Wings aficionado, you certainly know what's coming. Of course, it's arguably their masterpiece, apparently, Band on the Run. This would have been 1974. Trying to look for the cutting date on here. This was cut on, I think that says the 19th of February 2023. It's like a darkish red obi here. It's got the famous sleeve with all kinds of celebrities alongside Wings there, including, rather unpleasantly, Clement Freud, who after his death was outed as a sex pest. Yeah, let's not go into that. There's enough talk about those in the vinyl community lately anyway. Well, didn't alter the sleeve to remove him, which you could argue they maybe should have done, but you know, at least it keeps it authentic. I think this is based on the US pressing, because this includes Helen Wheels, the single, where the UK pressing originally didn't include that single. Of course, the title track is one of McCartney's most memorable songs really, including all of his Beatles output. I'm certainly familiar with that. Jet, although I don't rate that track as much as some people do, it's pretty decent and I'm very familiar with it. It was a massive seller, and it was finally the sort of critical as well as commercial acclaim that McCartney was striving for and hadn't really achieved with his previous, 4 albums at this point. So Band on the Run, 50th anniversary, all these are kind of 50th anniversary editions or thereabouts. So that was my Paul McCartney / Wings collection, all half speed mastered at Abbey Road Studios. Looking forward to seeing what comes next. Obviously, if you know the Wings chronology, then you can hazard a pretty safe guess at what comes next, but I'm just enjoying this series. Kind of wish I'd started it a few years ago, or at least when I could have got RAM a lot cheaper anyway, but better late than never. I look forward to completing this collection, as I know these are popular. Even long-time McCartney fans who've got many pressings of this album still enjoy having the half-speed masters come out. So I'm assuming that this series will run and run, well, who knows, at least till the end of the Wings chronology, and presumably into the sort of McCartney 2 and beyond era. But thank you all for watching. Special thanks go to my wonderful subscribers and generous patrons. I'm going to go now. I'm going to start listening to all that good Paul McCartney stuff there in crystal clear, half-speed mastered sound. Obviously I'm going to start with RAM. I'm going to probably do this in chronological order. If you've got any of these albums, let me know in the comments what you reckon to the Half-Speed Masters. Are they better than the originals or other reissues that you've heard? Or do you think it's a bit of snake oil? Always happy to have a conversation about stuff in the comments, so please leave them there, and I will see you next time for my next record collecting video. Cheers everyone. See ya!